Pearl Mackie is the narrator of the 2021 magnificent documentary, The Real Charlie Chaplin. I thought I knew about Charlie Chaplin's life. I really did. Never read any of his biographies, but I thought I was studied. It turns out I know nothing. I just know he was poor. He founded United Artists. He was somewhat of an independent rogue. And he created some of the best films of all time. This documentary basically explained to myself that I just knew Charlie Chaplin's bullet points. I just knew some of his highlights. We all have to watch this movie.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Action!
So we addressed Pearl Mackie early on in that intro because her voice is so perfect for this. Now, I don't know what else she's done professionally. I really don't care. Sometimes you want to find that perfection in life and admire it. I've seen this documentary 2 times. The first time was often how I try and absorb documentaries, which is let them play while you're doing other things. Do 2 things at once. And then eventually, if the documentary is good, we'll say, and this could be a little bit of the Peter test. How does Peter, AKAPAD, the film buff, how do I shit test? Oh, I'm going to curse here. How do I shit test documentaries? I let them go, and if they pull me into where I have to sit down and focus and kind of get inspired by the story, get pulled in, then we have something. This documentary is directed. It's got 2 directors. James Spiney is one of them. I love that name. And Peter Middleton. Takes a Peter to know a Peter. It's written by those 2 individuals with Oliver Kiddenberg. I don't know any of the backgrounds in this movie. What I found out that was so shocking is in one of his movies, Charlie Chaplin, they basically shot one scene with multiple actresses endlessly, like hundreds and hundreds of takes. It was somewhat of an introduction scene. And this documentary highlights that. This documentary highlights how the public came after Charlie Chaplin in his later years. What we see in the Chaplin biopic, the Robert Altman biopic that stars Robert Downey Jr., that I also absolutely love, we see how much of a big idea it was when he got his honorary Oscar. Somewhat of an apology from his contemporaries. I had no idea when the entire industry went sound, Charlie Chaplin stayed silent. I have no idea his correlations with Adolf Hitler, that they were just born 4 days apart, and they viewed even themselves as contemporaries. Charlie Chaplin being a staunch critic of everything they were doing over there in Nazi Germany. We want to say, we know Charlie Chaplin really built the modern day Hollywood because we're still talking about him. And I know there's always the argument, like Fox Studio and Warner Brothers and MGM and Columbia, right? Like all of these RKO Pictures, even William Randolph Hearst, even Howard Hughes. We want to say all those names matter and their contributions are foggy because, well, time has faded and shifted what some of the reality is and was at the time. We're not taking away, and I don't want to take away any of those contributions. I hope to highlight those contributions moving forward on this podcast. But we have to say that Charlie Chaplin is the filmmaker. He's the talent. He's the personality. The biopic depicts his depraved, poor life. His mother that did descend into madness. The biopic portrays that so well. The Robert Downey Jr. He got nominated for an Oscar for that. RD Jr. or Iron Man. It depicts it, but this documentary just hits it home. Charlie Chaplin literally came from nothing. He is that story. You thought at one point that story was the Arnold Schwarzenegger story. And I believe for a generation of people it was. But when we look back, Chaplin did so much more in his later years than Schwarzenegger could ever imagine. Schwarzenegger had tried, and he is still trying. And, we give him credit. We always want that comeback movie for Arnold. We just want that comeback movie. We got it with Stallone. We got so much for Stallone in that case. This film buff episode is here to tell you to watch this movie, to tell you that it is something of significance. I caught it on Paramount Plus Stream, which merges with Showtime. I believe this is a Showtime original. I like the graphics. I like the presentation style. You get a lot of that with these cinematic documentaries. They can do so much with still pictures. For me, this documentary moved like a Ken Burns documentary. It just gives you so much information. It pulls you in. I also had no idea that Charlie Chaplin and the documentary addresses this. I give it so much credit. And I get it. We're in a Me Too era. We're in the Me Too movement. Some people say we're on the tail end of it. Maybe we are. Maybe we aren't. Time will tell. But Charlie Chaplin did like young girls. He just did. So did Howard Hughes. So did William Randolph Hearst. Because these men are in positions of absolute power. Currently, in the comic book world, where everyone's dealing with a similar fallout, similar revelation of what absolute fame and money can do to certain individuals. But a lot of people feel like Charlie Chaplin was attacked falsely for his potential communist ties. But, that's a can of worms. If you want to know a little bit more of my perspective on that, I recommend checking out my Oppenheimer conversation. That's available on this very feed. It's important to understand that these individuals have lived complicated lives. But because of this documentary, I have to dedicate myself to his films and bringing his films to you. So let it be said, The Real Charlie Chaplin is a documentary that has inspired me to know his films, period. And I urge you to do the same, to let this documentary have that same effect. It's the least we can do, because this is part of the history. This is part of the film history that we love, and we have to uphold it. And the only way to uphold it is to have advocates. So let's go, Film Buff Army. Rock and roll.
Okay, that's a wrap.